Good day. Thank you for joining us today for this session on making your computer workstation setup more user or ergonomically friendly so you can be comfortable and free from pain and discomfort while at work and also at the end of your workday. My name is Cheryl Osborne and I am a health and safety advisor with Workplace NL. And my work focuses on ergonomics and the prevention of strains, sprains, and other disorders to muscles, tendons, ligaments, our spinal discs, nerves, and related soft tissue, all of which are known as musculoskeletal injuries. These are the kind of injuries that computer users commonly experience and suffer from. A couple of housekeeping items. This is a recorded session, but you will still be able to access a copy of today's presentation, as well as a copy of the Workplace NL Office Ergonomics Self-Inspection Checklist in the handout section. If you have a question, please email the Workplace NL Prevention Service team at safety@workplacenl.ca, and someone will get back to you. After the session, you will receive an email survey to provide feedback on the webinar. Please take a moment and complete the survey and provide your feedback and also any suggestions for future topics. And as this webinar is just 30 minutes in length, and it includes a practical piece involving posture changes, there will be no designated micro break during this session. Today's topics include an overview of the main risk factors that are injuring computer workers, a step-by-step guide on how to adjust your workstation with the opportunity to self-adjust as you follow along, and an overview of Workplace NL's Office Ergonomics Self-Inspection Checklist, which may help with determining if further adjustments or assessment of your workstation may be needed. Are you constantly uncomfortable while you work? Are you achy, stiff, or suffering from neck, shoulder, back, or wrist pain? You could be developing a musculoskeletal injury, or what we call MSI for short. Sadly, MSIs are prevalent, and they account for nearly 70% of all lost time injury compensation claims in Newfoundland and Labrador. But the good news is that you don't have to be part of this statistic. This is because computer users generally experience warning signs or symptoms of an injury long before an actual diagnosable disorder develops, because the risk factors you face are ones that typically require repeated or prolonged exposure before they cause lasting impacts. And you have a lot of control over that. By making adjustments to your workstation and improving some work habits maybe, you can reduce your risk of MSI and even alleviate symptoms if you already have them. Symptoms such as persistent pain, discomfort, sudden or gradual fatigue, swelling, redness, warmth in an area, decreased range of motion, numbness or tingling sensations, or movements that produce a catching sensation or piercing pinch, or a snapping or crepitus sensation. If you sit behind a desk all day, you're not doomed to a career of neck and back pain or sore wrists and fingers. Proper office ergonomics will help you to be able to stay comfortable and keep you healthy at work. MSI risk factors. So today's self-adjustment will help you minimize exposure to the most prevalent MSI risk factors among computer users, so that disorders like carpal tunnel syndrome, tension neck syndrome, herniated discs, tendonitis or epicondylitis, and other MSIs can be prevented. Forced, awkward postures, sustained posture, repetitive motions, and contact stresses are the main risk factors present in computer work. When you type and mouse with insufficient rest and recovery time, repetition comes into play. When keyboard work is being done, some motions are repeated as often as every few seconds, some faster. Fatigue and strain can accumulate. Force is the amount of exertion required by your muscles to perform a task. Aggressively striking your keys can be considered forceful. Awkward or static postures are often caused by poor design or equipment selection. When you don't have adequate lumbar support, when you don't have adequate arm support, you are at an increased risk of developing pain and discomfort. Can you relate to either of these pictures at your workstation? When your keyboard and monitor are not placed directly in front of you, you are at increased risk. When your wrists are extended or when your neck is bent, you're also at risk. These poor postures place excessive forces on your body. The greater the amount of time you hold a static position, the more likely you'll develop localized fatigue and become fatigued generally. And this goes for sitting, but also includes your neck, shoulders, and arms. These areas are very much held in a static position during computer work and often get sore and stiff because of it. Leaning the arm or wrist against the edge of the desk while typing, leaning on the wrist while maneuvering the mouse, tightly gripping the mouse, and bracing the telephone receiver between your neck and shoulder all cause direct pressure on soft tissues, which can block blood supply and negatively impact nerve function. This risk factor is known as contact stress. Sometimes all it takes is some minor adjustments of your workstation and work habits to be able to avoid all of these risk factors. So let's do some adjusting now with your workspace so that you can be comfortable. A video will now be played to show you how to do this step by step, and you're encouraged to follow along and self-adjust your own workstation along the way. If your workstation is reasonably adjustable, this training today and the self-adjustment may be sufficient. But in some cases, some minor equipment and furniture may be needed, like a footrest, for example. But today's proactive and educational approach promotes efficient use of resources, and it identifies potential issues before discomfort develops or progresses into more serious problems and suffering. The instructions that will be provided are ergonomics guidelines for computer users, which simply put means instructions to fit your workstation to you and your unique body characteristics so that you can work comfortably and in turn also work productively. So now we're going to show, just bear with me a moment, we're going to show a video for computer workstation setup so you can follow along and self-adjust.
Sitting in a chair for most of your work time, day in and day out, can make you uncomfortable and can also create pain and discomfort symptoms. These two practices can help keep you comfortable and pain-free. First is to keep your body moving throughout your time at work to avoid sitting for prolonged periods. And the same goes for standing if you have a sit-stand station, and for computer work in general, since the upper body tends to maintain a fixed position when we use computer. Any prolonged position, even a good one, can be tiring on our muscles and related soft body structures. After all, we are designed to move. As muscles tire, we become more inclined to slouch, slump, or adopt other poor postures. Change positions frequently so that you can keep a relaxed yet supported posture. Take a break from sitting every 20 to 30 minutes to stretch, stand, or walk for a minute or two. Step away from your computer for about 5 minutes every hour to give your upper body a break. The second practice is to keep a healthy posture while you work, while sitting and while standing. More time spent in poor postures means more damage is likely to develop. Your chair must properly support your body, and the other pieces of your workstation, such as your keyboard, mouse, monitor, and other components, must be in easy reach and easy to see. While Kathleen's posture doesn't appear too bad, some adjustments can be made to provide arm support, to eliminate pressure in her wrists, reduce her need to tip her head back to view the monitor, which is too high, and reduce eye strain. To adjust your workstation, start first with establishing neutral posture in your chair, then progress to your keyboard and mouse placement, desk height adjustment as able, then monitor positioning, and lastly, organize everything else within easy reach. If you didn't catch that, no worries, because we'll guide you through it all shortly. First, take a moment to locate all the adjustment options on your chair. Most are familiar with the paddle that raises and lowers their seat, but oftentimes there's other adjustments available that people don't realize. Sometimes a pamphlet will come with a new chair, or a card will hang in under the seat, both of which would explain all the ways it could adjust. You could also physically check for any paddles, bars, buttons, etc. by walking around and looking under the chair. Most are located under your seat on the left or right side, or both sides. Typically, there's an adjustment indicator, such as an image etched in it with arrows showing what part of the chair that control adjusts. For example, this paddle raises and lowers the seat. Check under the front of your seat to see if there's a bar that might adjust the depth of your seat pan. Controls for the backrest may be located on the backrest itself, so check under your backrest, behind it, and along its sides. The full backrest will often be able to raise and lower, but sometimes there are extra controls to adjust the lumbar support independently. The lumbar support is that hump or curve in the lower part of the backrest. Sometimes the height of the lumbar support can adjust without having to raise or lower the full backrest. And also, the depth of that curve may even be able to adjust to better match your spine shape. Move now to your armrests to see how they may be able to be adjusted. The most common feature is the ability to adjust the height, but other options may be available. Can yours be brought closer together or farther apart, for example? Check under the seat at the bottom of the armbar that connects the seat with the arm pad to see if there's a screw or mechanism to loosen and slide the bar in or out to modify the breadth of the arms. Can you slide the arm pads themselves right or left to adjust your armrest breadth even more? Can the pads turn sideways? In regards to adjusting the height, check for a simple push and pull ratchet function or other mechanism on the arm bar. Kathleen will now show you how to adjust your chair to establish neutral posture. You are encouraged to go ahead and make your own adjustments as you follow along. You can adjust your chair while you're seated. If your feet are now on a footrest, please slide it out of the way for now and make your chair adjustments without the footrest. Please go ahead now and lower your chair all the way down. Your feet should be well rested on the floor. Otherwise, you will have pressure points in the back of your legs, which, if you work this way, could create circulation issues in your legs and feet. Also, increased strain would be placed on your lower back, which could cause nagging pain and discomfort for you. The paddle to adjust Kathleen's seat is located under her seat pan, on her right side, close to the front. Yours may be there as well, or somewhere else. If your hips are lower in height than your knees, go ahead now and use your seat height adjustment control to raise your seat up so your hips and knees are at the same height while ensuring that your feet are still firmly rested on the floor. It will be okay if your knees are slightly lower than your hips, as long as you do not feel localized pressure behind your legs toward the front part of your seat. If you do, then slightly lower your seat. If, on the other hand, you're feeling any localized pressure toward the back of your seat, then raise your chair a little. The goal is to evenly distribute your weight across the seat. Check now to see if you have enough space behind the back of your knees and the front edge of your seat. The seat should not be pressing into your legs. Sit back against your backrest, then make a fist and see if it can fit behind your knees. If not, decrease the depth of your seat pan if you are able, so that the measurement from the front of your seat to the back of the chair is shorter. If you have a bar under the front of your seat, try squeezing it and holding while you move your seat back or forward, then let go to lock it in place. If you have a paddle instead, it's probably the same technique. Hold up on the paddle, adjust, then let go. If you have no adjustment option or your legs are still compressed into the front of the seat, try using a back support pillow to allow you to sit further ahead. If, on the other hand, you have too much space behind your knees and not enough surface area on the seat, then use the same control to increase the seat depth. Tilt the back support now, if possible, so your upper body is slightly reclined, with approximately a 110-degree hip angle. This is the preferred position for your back for the most support. However, if you prefer to be positioned more upright, or you frequently look down at your keys to type and a reclined posture would result in you significantly bending your neck, then reduce the tilt of the backrest and sit more upright. The most important thing is that we make sure not to bend forward with a hip angle of less than 90 degrees, or you will increase your risk of back and neck pain and injury. A good office chair should support the natural curve of your lower back. If possible, raise or lower your backrest until this is achieved. If your chair is highly adjustable, you may have an independent adjustment for the lumbar support itself. And if so, use that to position the lumbar support in the small of your lower back. The width of your seat should not be so narrow that it puts pressure on your thighs, but should be narrow enough that you can comfortably use the armrests when they're properly adjusted. The armrests can support the upper part of your forearms and support your arm weight, and this reduces tension on your shoulders, neck, and back. They should never restrict the chair from being drawn close to your desk or restrict natural movement, and therefore they should be adjusted to slightly below elbow height, so that way you're not forced to use them all of the time. You want to make sure that your shoulders are relaxed while you work, and so when adjusting the height of your armrests, be sure that your shoulders are relaxed. Maybe take a deep breath and exhale, and then go ahead and raise or lower the armrests so that your elbows are at a 90-degree angle. The adjustment control for this varies greatly from one chair to the next, but will most always be located on the armrests themselves. Next, check to see if the armrests can move inward so that they are as close to your body as they will allow. Sometimes a chair will have the ability for the pads themselves that you lay your arms on to slide inward independently from the armrest shafts. And this is a great feature that some chairs have because it allows the armrests to get in very, very close to the body. Your armrests are positioned properly if your upper arms are close to your body, your shoulders are relaxed and not elevated, and your forearms are comfortably settled onto the pads when using your keyboard and mouse. Keeping straight wrists reduces the risk of developing carpal tunnel syndrome. So you want to be able to move your whole arm to use the keyboard and the mouse, and this is achievable if your elbow is properly supported. Adjusting your chair is just the first part of proper ergonomics at your workstation. Next, we'll work on mouse and keyboard placement. But first, you may be tempted to bring back your footrest. Before you do so, just take a moment to move around in your chair. Move to the right of your desk or the left, turn around. If your feet are rested comfortably on the floor, you can do all these things without a footrest and without putting pressure on the underside of your legs. This is particularly nice if you tend to do a lot of moving around at your desk, for example, to talk to a colleague or to switch back and forth between computer work and desk work. But there are cases, of course, when a footrest is needed or when you might benefit from one, and the first has to do with personal choice. If you feel that having your feet inclined helps you feel more comfortable in your chair or maybe even better supported in your chair, then of course use one. And the second has to do with the height of your work in relation to your elbow height. If your keyboard and mouse, for example, is higher than the height of your elbows and they cannot be lowered, then you will need to raise the seat of your chair so that the keyboard and mouse is now at elbow height. And this would mean that your feet may no longer be rested firmly on the floor. And so if that is the case, a footrest would be required. Let's turn now to the keyboard and mouse. First, are both of them at the same height of one another? If not, then they should be, so let's start there. If you use a keyboard tray, it should be large enough to fit your mouse as well as your keyboard. If it isn't, then go ahead and place the keyboard and the mouse on your desk and have the tray removed, or consider purchasing a suitable one. Now that your keyboard and mouse are at the same height, determine if they are higher, lower, or at your elbow height, the height of your armrests. If not, adjust the height of your desk if possible. If your desk cannot be raised or lowered, then you must adjust your seat of your chair. For taller individuals, if you had to lower your chair and this resulted in your knees now being higher than your hips, you're advised to notify your employer that your desk is too low. On the other hand, if you had to raise your chair and your feet are no longer supported by the floor, you're advised to use a footrest. In this case, if you regularly spend time doing other work at your desk away from your computer, then it will be important that your feet are supported there as well. When using your keyboard and mouse, again, you want your elbows to be at 90 degrees with your shoulders relaxed and not elevated. Also pay attention to how relaxed your fingers are. To reduce excessive force on these small muscles and tissues, work on achieving a light touch on the keys and keeping your fingers relaxed rather than pounding on the keys. Be sure as well to slide your chair in close enough so that when you are typing and mousing, you're able to keep your arms rested on your armrests. Turning now to your monitor, you don't want your screen to be too low because it will cause your neck to bend, or too high because it will cause your neck to be extended back. You also don't want your monitor to be positioned to the side because it will cause your neck to twist and probably your back as well, and these are all awkward postures that can lead to pain and discomfort. What you do want is for your monitor to be positioned directly in front of you. The top of the screen should be level with your eyes, and your screen should be at a distance of approximately arm's length. There is an exception to the monitor height if you wear bifocals or progressive lenses. In some cases, you want to make sure that when you wear your glasses that you can see the screen when you're looking straight forward without tipping your head up or down. So it may help to lower your monitor slightly and tilt the top of the screen back slightly. If you also do computer work in a standing position, the principles for positioning your keyboard, mouse, and monitor are the same as when sitting, except that the height of your work surface should now be the height of your elbows when you are standing. And this allows for your wrists to remain straight while you're keying and mousing. Keep your keyboard and mouse close to you as well, so you're not reaching, and so that your upper arms can be more relaxed at your body sides. And if you use an adjustable sit-stand desk, it's possible that your monitor height may need to be raised slightly when you transition from sitting to standing. Follow the same principle though. The top of your screen should be at eye level or so that you are not needing to tip your head down or up to work. We have now completed setting up the main components of your computer workstation, and we hope you have found this guide to be helpful. We know this information is fairly easy to understand, but it can be easy to forget as well, and that's why we have created the Office Ergonomics Self-Inspection Checklist. Please visit our website for the tool and to learn more.
Okay, so we will review the self-inspection checklist momentarily, but first I wanted to cover a couple of additional tips that were not covered in the video, but are often asked by people. The one is if you have two monitors. So if you have two monitors, the positioning of them would be based upon how much time you spend using each of them. The objective is that you want to keep your head faced forward for most of your work time. So would you say that you use one of your monitors for 70% or more of your work time? If so, you have a primary monitor, and that one should be positioned directly in front of you. The other one would be beside that primary monitor, touching it and at the same height and distance away, but on a slight angle towards you. If you don't use one of the monitors as much as 70% of the time or more, then consider them as being used equally. And in this case, you would position them just as shown in the image on the right. Again, they are side by side and touching one another, but now the point where they meet is directly in front of you and lined up with the center of your keyboard. And again, they would be positioned on a slight angle. The two of them in this case would be positioned on a slight angle. If you use a laptop, the only way you can be sure that your neck and your arms and wrists are in a healthy posture is to use an external or independent keyboard and mouse, and either raise the laptop or connect a monitor, an independent monitor. If you frequently type or write to do, or you do other tasks while you're using a telephone, so in other words, you multitask while you're on the phone, then place your phone on a speaker where appropriate, or even better, use a headset so that you're not cradling the phone between your head and neck in an awkward posture, and you have some privacy, and it keeps the noise volume down in an office environment. Position your key objects that you use, like maybe your phone, your printed materials or pens, a calculator perhaps. Position these key objects close to you to minimize repetitive reaching. Which items do you use the most? Prioritize placing those key items in easy reach. So the final topic today is the Office Ergonomics Self-Inspection Checklist. What is it and where can I find it? This is what the checklist looks like, and you can find it on Workplace NL's website. It can be downloaded from there at workplacenl.ca. So what is it all about? Well, since workplaces are changing and workers are spending less time in traditional designated office spaces and now spending more and more time working from their homes or in shared spaces, employers are relying more and more on workers now to inspect their own stations and perform the necessary adjustments. Whereas in traditional offices, a supervisor or health and safety representative might assist a worker in assessing or physically adjusting a station. So this self-inspection checklist guides workers through assessing their own stations and highlights key aspects of a good setup for computer work and allows workers to consider those aspects when reviewing their own setups and when adjustments and you know what adjustments they can make to be able to work in a better position. They can also refer back to it periodically to see if anything has changed or needs readjusting. So our goal at Workplace NL is to support workers in being able to identify hazards in their work, and this checklist certainly helps to achieve that. If you are here today representing an employer, an idea for you to consider would, and that is of course if you've not already got a similar process established, is that you have all of your employees that use computers regularly complete this checklist at a predetermined interval, annually, for example, as part of your OHS program requirements. It can serve as a refresher of office ergonomics to continue the awareness about MSIs and provide employees the opportunity to reflect upon their setups and their work habits and how each might be negatively impacting their comfort and health. The checklist has 4 sections that focus on specific parts of the body: the arms, wrists, and hands, head and neck, eyes, and back and legs. So in this way, it can be used as a pain and discomfort troubleshooting tool. If you're experiencing discomfort in a particular area of the body, you could refer to the section on the checklist for that body area and look for possible reasons for the discomfort, and then hopefully make the appropriate adjustments. This is an example. If you have back pain or discomfort, some possible or more likely reasons for this include your back is not rested against and supported by the backrest of your chair. Your backrest does not provide proper support for your lumbar spine. Your feet are not supported fully against the floor or a footrest, causing your back muscles to work harder to support your body. Your knees are higher than your hips, resulting in a hip angle of less than 90 degrees, which would increase strain on your lower back. Or the seat pan is tilted down too much in the front and you're not supported enough by your seat and having to activate your core muscles more to keep you from slipping forward. And it could also be due to work habits, your work habits. So you'll also, it will be important that you will also complete the section of the checklist that's titled Work Design and Habits. For example, perhaps you're not giving your body adequate rest so muscles and other soft tissues can recover. Remember, any body position can cause discomfort and fatigue if it's maintained for long periods of time. So we need to change postures frequently and we need to move our body, period. So the checklist allows you to consider both the setup of your workstation, but also your work habits to see what might be contributing to your symptoms. And if you've completed the checklist and you've responded with a no to any questions, now you would want to try to make the appropriate adjustments. And if you cannot, then this should be documented on the notes section on page 2. Note what you tried to do and what the problem is. Do you not have the proper equipment, for example? Does your chair not have the adjustment feature that's needed? Did the adjustment create a new problem? So once you've completed making your notes, now provide that checklist to your supervisor, and the objective is that your supervisor will follow up on your concerns. And in many cases, you and your supervisor together will find a solution to the problem. However, in some cases, a supervisor may need further assistance. They might need to consult with an OHS committee member or a member of the organization that has more knowledge in ergonomics. Or sometimes they might need to consult with an external ergonomics professional. And this is often or sometimes the case when a worker has physical limitations that are or have the potential to become aggravated by your workstation setup. For example, due to an illness or an injury. And their limitations might require professional guidance for suitable accommodation. So you may have come to the realization today that you as a worker have a great deal of control over how you work, and therefore in reducing your risk of pain and discomfort and developing an MSI injury. You control how you set up your station, the postures you will use while you work, and how often you give your body a break. Your approach to your work can have a significant impact on your level of comfort or lack thereof. Sometimes new equipment may be necessary, but always you have some level of control over your level of exposure to the MSI risk factors, like sustained postures, for example. You control whether or not you will tell your supervisor if your workstation does not match your needs. You control how often you get up out of your chair. You have control over adjusting your chair where the options exist. And you have control over the positioning of your monitor. You play a key role in preventing future problems. So in closing, today we reviewed the MSI risk factors most prevalent in computer work. We reviewed how to adjust these key components of your computer workstation to reduce exposure to the MSI risk factors. And an overview of the Office Ergonomics self-inspection checklist was provided. I hope this session was helpful and that you will experience great rewards from your self-adjustment. If you have any questions, as a reminder, please email the Prevention Services team at safety@workplacenl.ca. In closing, in case you weren't aware, Workplace NL has a series of health and safety podcasts on various and current OHS topics called The Signal. And here are a few ways to access them. In regards to upcoming webinars, for a complete listing of events, please visit workplacenl.ca/events or simply scan the QR code provided. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and hopefully we'll see you again.